Welcome to the deep dive. We dig into the sources, pull out the key insights, and really equip you to understand the deeper layers.
Glad to be diving in.
Today, we're looking at something pretty amazing. How a nation, this huge lasting thing, can actually grow from, well, really slow, sometimes kind of messed up beginnings.
Right, it's not always a straight line, is it?
Not at all. And we're exploring how maybe there's an unseen hand, a higher power, shaping things even when it looks chaotic. Our guides for this are Lesson 4, God Works Through the Patriarchs, and Tracing the Lineage from Patriarchs to Nationhood.
Good foundational material there.
And our mission to unpack those fascinating, sometimes surprising steps in nation building and see what this history might teach you about patience, about purpose, and how plans can unfold in ways you just don't expect.
Yeah, those unexpected turns are often key.
Okay, let's unpack this. So we start right at the foundation, and the first thing that jumps out is just the time involved. It takes so long. God makes these huge promises, and then silence for decades.
It's true, the waiting is significant.
I mean, Abraham waits 25 years from promise to Isaac. 25 years.
Yeah.
And then Isaac, he marries Rebekah. She's barren for, 18 years? He's 60 when Jacob and Esau finally arrive. Why? Why the massive delays for these critical moments?
Well, what's truly insightful here, according to our sources, is the reason behind those delays. They're not just random waiting periods.
Okay.
They're seen as these intense faith-building times, like crucibles, almost. Think about Abraham's 25 years. It wasn't just waiting, it was deep character development, building trust, readiness.
Okay. So it's about getting the person ready for the promise.
Exactly. It suggests the divine timeline often waits for us, for human capacity, for faith and resilience to, well, catch up. The sources imply that sometimes we are the reason it's taking so long. Our development.
That idea that human development is the key, that makes a lot of sense. It makes me think of Isaac. He seems so different embodying this, quiet patience.
He really does.
Our sources point out he's the only patriarch that never left land. He's just digging, redigging his father's wells, even when the Philistines fill them in.
Right. Persistence.
What does that image tell us, this quiet reclaiming, staying put, compared to Abraham's journeys?
That's a great observation. Isaac's commitment to that specific place, symbolized by the wells, it really shows this deep, settled trust. It may be a different flavor of faith than Abraham's constant movement.
Like an assurance right where he was.
Exactly. And the sources mention his peaceful dealings, even with enemies like Abimelech. It lines up with that proverb, when a man's ways please the Lord, even his enemies are at peace with him.
Proverbs 16.7, yeah.
It paints this picture of steadfastness, quiet strength, building without needing constant external validation or movement.
He was definitely unique, that quiet dedication, and it's that very quality that's tested in the most extreme way, isn't it? A moment that defines him, defines the whole story, really.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'm talking about the offering of Isaac, Mount Moriah. Here's where it gets really interesting.
This event is absolutely central. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the parallels drawn in our sources to the sacrifice of Christ are just stunning.
Lay them out for us.
Okay, so you have God commanding Abraham, "Take now thy son, thine only son, whom thou lovest," Genesis 22.2. That echoes John 3.16. God gave his only begotten son, and John 1.18, the only begotten son, which is in the bosom of the Father.
Yeah.
The language is just so parallel.
Wow, okay.
Then Isaac carrying the wood for the offering in Genesis 22.6, that's directly compared to Christ bearing his cross in John 19.7.
The same action.
The very same. And Isaac's question, so poignant, where is the lamb for a burnt offering in Genesis 22.7? Well, it finds its ultimate answer centuries later with John the Baptist pointing to Jesus in John 1.29. "Behold, the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world."
Chills. Just chills.
On Abraham's declaration. God will provide himself the lamb, Genesis 22.8. This connects straight to Revelation 13.8, talking about the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. It's like the plan was there all along.
Incredible foresight.
But the contrast is just as powerful. An angel stops Abraham, right? Genesis 22.1 and 1:12. He doesn't have to go through with it.
Right.
But for Christ, no voice from heaven stops it. Matthew 27.42 says, "Others noted, he saved others, himself he cannot save." God even uses the analogy of grief over losing an only son in Jeremiah 6.26, showing he fully understands the depth of that commitment.
Those parallels are incredibly deep, a divine blueprint across time. But then, okay, we move from Isaac to Jacob. And Jacob, well, he's known for being a bit more tricky. stealing the blessing.
Definitely a more complex figure.
How do we fit him in? This flawed start, plus the theme pops up again, barren wives, Rachel and Leah this time. How does that fit with this grand design you just laid out?
Yeah, this raises an important question indeed. How could God work through Jacob's, frankly, messed up family situation?
Yeah.
I mean, he ends up with 12 sons from 4 different women. Leah, Rachel, and their maids, Bilhah and Zilpah. Genesis 30 describes it. It was almost like a competition for Jacob's favor for children.
Super complicated dynamics.
Incredibly complex. But those 12 sons, born out of all that strife, they become the foundation, the initial tribal framework for the entire nation.
Yeah.
It was chaotic, messy, yes, but apparently it was God's chosen path.
So the 12 tribes emerge from that environment. It really makes you wonder. And then just when you think the lineage story couldn't get stranger, Genesis 38, Judah and Tamar. Man, isn't that weird?
It is definitely a chapter that stands out.
I mean, Tamar dressing up as a prostitute, Judah not recognizing her, giving her his signet, his staff, his cords as a pledge, and then she turns up pregnant. It feels like such a strange detour.
It does feel like a curveball, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Our sources call it unconventional, even potentially scandalous. It seems to almost contradict the idea of a holy lineage.
Right.
But here's the profound part. That story, Judah and Tamar, is a direct link in the lineage leading to Jesus Christ. It goes Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and through Judah and Tamar.
No way.
Seriously. The sources explain this, shows how Jesus fully identified with us as sinners, how God, in his plan, humbled himself to be associated with you and me, even in our most broken, imperfect moments. It challenges our whole idea of who's worthy.
Wow, that's humbling.
It really is. And it offers hope, right? If God can work through situations as messed up as this, don't you think he can work through the complexities and imperfections in your life too?
That's a powerful encouragement. Absolutely. So what does this all mean then? We've got this messy, complicated family, 70 people total, according to Genesis 46.27. How does that become a nation?
Right. How do you get from 70 to millions?
This is where Joseph comes in, isn't he? Jacob's son, the preserver.
Precisely.
Yeah.
God's plan here was incredibly layered. He sends Joseph ahead to Egypt, sold into slavery, remember?
Yeah, betrayed by his brothers.
Exactly. But then he rises through all sorts of trials to become second in command of all Egypt. He's perfectly positioned to save his family when famine hits. It wasn't an accident. The sources are clear. God's plan involved his people going down into slavery in Egypt.
So slavery was part of the plan.
It seems so.
Sure.
To multiply, to be shaped, maybe even protected for a time within Egypt, before becoming their own distinct nation.
And multiply they certainly did. Over those 400 or so years, the 70 people who went down, they exploded into, what, an estimated 2.5 to 3 million by the Exodus?
That's the estimate, yeah. It's staggering growth.
The sources kind of bluntly say their main job in slavery was make bricks and babies. Not much else going on, so massive population boom.
Right. But as they grew, the Egyptians got nervous. Very nervous.
Understandably, from their perspective.
Pharaoh tried to clamp down. Harsh labor, trying to eliminate the Jewish problem, as the sources put it, even resorting to infanticide, ordering all the newborn Israelite boys killed.
Just horrific.
Absolutely horrific. But even through that, God was still at work. Despite Pharaoh's brutal attempts, the nation kept growing. It's this incredible picture of divine protection right in the middle of terrible oppression.
It really is. You know, I doubt during those 400 years, making bricks all day, babies at night, that many of them stopped and thought, oh yeah, God's working here. This is his plan.
Probably not. It must have felt hopeless much of the time.
And how many times is that true in our own lives now? You're going through something tough, feels like you're just grinding away, maybe even feel forgotten, and you think, where is God in this? What happened? But this history suggests he is working, even when we can't see it, even in the slavery periods of our lives. Okay, so God's got the people, millions of them, shared history, language. What's missing for a nation? Leadership, laws.
Exactly. Enter Moses.
And his training.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It really is unique. First, 40 years raised in Pharaoh's house. Exodus and Acts tell us he got the absolute best education Egypt could offer.
Like top-tier education.
Top tier. We're talking athletics, art, writing, music, geometry, literature, law, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, the works. What's fascinating here is God using a pagan nation, Egypt, to equip his future leader with incredible intellectual and administrative skills.
But then Moses kind of blew it, right? Tried to take charge too early.
He did jump the gun, yeah. At age 40, he kills an Egyptian who is beating an Israelite. Big mistake.
Huge.
He has to flee, runs off to Midian. and spends the next 40 years as a shepherd in the desert.
Talk about a contrast. Prince of Egypt to desert shepherd.
Massive contrast. But that desert time was just as crucial. God's purpose there, the sources say, was about humility, dependence, making Moses so dependent on me that when I get through with you, you won't want to do anything except the things I want you to do.
Breaking him down to build him back up God's way.
Exactly. So when God finally calls him from the burning bush, Moses is not eager. He's full of excuses. Who am I? I can't speak well. They won't believe me.
Total reluctance.
Complete reluctance. But God still raises him up, turns this hesitant shepherd into the deliverer, the lawgiver, the builder, commander-in-chief, judge, even the author of the first 5 books of the Bible, and the mediator between God and the people. Quite the resume.
An incredible transformation. So, people, leader, but they're still in Egypt. They need to leave to be their own nation.
Right. Separation was key.
And God, it seems, had to make life pretty unbearable first, right?
Right.
Pharaoh cranks up the pressure, makes them absolutely miserable, so they'd actually want to leave the only home they'd known.
That seems to be part of it. Making the known uncomfortable so the unknown becomes desirable. And then God steps in dramatically to get them out. The 10 plagues.
Not just random disasters.
No, not at all. Water to blood, frogs, lice, flies, livestock disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and finally the death of the firstborn. Each one, the sources argue, was a direct hit against an Egyptian deity or object of worship.
Like a divine showdown.
Exactly. The Nile god, the frog goddess, the sacred bull, Ra, the sun god, even Pharaoh himself considered divine. God was demonstrating his total sovereignty over all of them, saying, I am.
Wow. And just before that final devastating plague, the Passover.
Yes, Exodus 12. Absolutely foundational.
What was the core message there?
Several things. The need for a substitute, a spotless lamb, the necessity of shed blood for life, and this idea of separation, getting rid of all leaven, symbolizing sin and iniquity. God wanted a pure, redeemed people set apart for him. It was a powerful object lesson.
Redemption and purity right from the start. Okay, so they're out of Egypt, delivered. What next?
Next comes the structure, the governance. At Mount Sinai, God gives them the law. Exodus 20. This is basically the constitution for the new nation.
The rules of the road.
Exactly. And they weren't just supposed to, file it away. They were commanded to weave it into the fabric of everyday life. The Shema, you find it in Deuteronomy and Numbers, was central. Love God, teach these commandments diligently to your children, talk about them constantly.
Make it part of everything.
Part of everything. And they had physical reminders. The tefillin, little boxes with scriptures tied to the hand and forehead.
I've seen pictures of those.
And the mezuzah scrolls on the doorposts. People would touch them, even kiss them as they went in and out. A constant reminder.
Wow.
And even their clothes had reminders. Blue threads, tassels on the corners of their garments. The purpose. To look at them and remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them. Now, the Pharisees later made a show of these, but the original idea was a heartfelt, visible commitment to God's ways.
So law wasn't just abstract, it was physically integrated into life.
Deeply integrated.
What an incredible journey we followed. I mean, from one guy in Ur, Abraham,
Yep.
through all the waiting, the barrenness, the really flawed family situations, the explosion of people in slavery, this leader trained first as a prince, then as a shepherd,
Right.
to finally becoming a nation with its own land, leadership, and this unique, divinely given constitution. It really hammers home that theme. God working his plan through long, difficult, often messy circumstances.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the story doesn't even end there.
Yeah.
The sources we looked at point forward. Yeah, to a future promise, a secure homeland, a united people, no more north and the south like they eventually became. And crucially, the law moving from just being on their hands or doorposts to being written on their hearts in the last days.
A deeper internal transformation.
Exactly. This whole sweep of history, it shows, as the sources say, God is the one that began the work, and you are the one that is continuing to do the work. And not one promise is going to fail. It builds confidence that the story is still unfolding according to his purpose.
It's an amazing perspective on persistence, both human and divine. So what does this all mean? Thinking about how God worked through those long waits, the messed up situations, the periods where he seemed silent or absent, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What seemingly stalled or imperfect situation in your own life right now might actually be part of a bigger unseen plan. What kind of patience or faith or resilience might God be developing in you through the process, just like he did with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses? Something to think about.
Definitely something to reflect on.
Thank you for diving deep with us today.